You're listening to Damage Boost, the best gaming podcast you've ever heard, as long as you've never heard another gaming podcast. On the show, I'll be talking to other players, streamers, artists, and creators about what makes gaming more than a hobby, but a beautiful art and an activity that brings together communities around the world. Let's jump into it. Hey everybody, welcome to Damage Boost. I'm your host, Brock Holiday, and today with me I have Charriii5, someone I've been following for quite a while. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right, Brock. How are you doing?
You know what? After all our audio stuff, I think I'm doing okay.
Hopefully that's true.
So today, we're going to talk a little bit about video games, a little about you. First question I want to ask, for somebody who's never seen your channel before, or know who you are, that you have to sell yourself to them. How would you sell your channel and your content to them if they've never seen you anything you've done before?
It's kind of that's a bit of a toughie because the stuff I do isn't inherently original, but if you're someone who is interested in seeing someone tackle video game stories and, you know, point out stuff that might not make a whole lot of sense, but still give you a good laugh without, like, being too, full of information, still kind of funny, someone who, cares about story in video games, then, maybe check my stuff out. I do stream sometimes where it's just me or sometimes my co-host playing. I think that's mostly probably what I'd sell, mostly just the fact that I do streams, not so much the everything wrong with stuff, because that's kind of hard to sell because it's like, tackling video game stories, what does that even mean? But I don't know, I like to consider myself someone who is kind of funny. So if you like having a good time and having a laugh, maybe that's something you'd be interested in, and I think I could probably deliver on that. Yeah, that's probably what I'd say. I don't know if that's too not confident enough.
Yeah, I'd say especially your streams with your voice acting talent. As soon as I click or I start watching, I'm like, it's just so much fun, and I don't know how you don't destroy your voice when you do like a 3-hour Persona 5 stream and you're doing all these voices. I'm like, I don't know how you're going nonstop. I don't know how you do it.
Honestly, I don't know. I think it might just be the years of practice, because it's funny. You were saying, and I don't know if I can say this, but you said, like, right before we started, right before we got everything sorted out, you mentioned that you hated, the thing you hated the most about editing these is that you hate listening to the sound of your own voice, which I followed up with, I completely understand what you mean, because when I was a kid, I felt the exact same way. I remember there was this one time that my mom doesn't let me live down, by the way. I was at a friend's house when I was a kid, and I was a very anxious kid, so I got scared about a lot of stuff. My parents were late to pick me up, so my mind immediately wandered to the worst possible thing that could have happened.
Oh no.
So I called home. No one picked up, so I had to leave a message on the answering machine. Mom, Dad, I'm here at blah blah blah's house. Where are you? Come pick me up. So they did go pick me up. They were a little late. I don't remember why. We get home. I see. I don't know what my obsession was with always listening to messages on the answering machine. I guess I was just fascinated with that. So I hear my own message and I start freaking out because I recognize the words, but I don't recognize the voice. I'm just like, who's that? And my parents tell me, like, that's you. And I'm like, no. And I start crying because I'm like, that's not me. What do you mean that's me? So I've always, and it's funny too, because I listen back to clips from when I was a kid. Well, not necessarily a kid, but younger. And I'm always like, man, do I really sound that high pitched and kind of whiny? I don't know. You get used to your voice, and I think I didn't talk much as a kid, but I guess I've always been talking to myself in a way, which is why I think maybe I have that stamina when it comes to being able to do these voices and being able to do, like, a lot of professional voice actors, they can go on for hours, and they need to like rest their voices for like an hour or so, like every 4 hours. But like I could just keep going, mostly because I guess I just have the practice. I don't know.
What was the journey like? You're saying that at first you're like, oh my God, this is me. Why is this me? And now you have projects going on. I saw I think it was on Twitter, you did something today,
Yes.
project you're working on.
Yes.
So how did that journey, how did you discover that, you had this talent, and then, how did that lead to what you're doing now?
Well, first off, thank you for calling it a talent. A lot of people would agree with you, but I don't like to be that big about myself. But thank you. I think it also did start with the whole hating my voice thing. I've always been someone who's enjoyed, much like I think anybody else in the world. I enjoy singing. I don't know if I'm very good at it. People say I am. I don't 100% agree with that. I listen back to myself and I'm like, God, this sucks. But I don't really remember where my fascination with voice acting started. It must have been around the time I started doing stuff on YouTube, and I started making my own video. This was back in like 2008 when I started like doing my own videos like in Movie Maker and stuff. And I think it's also rooted in like my animations, because when I made those animations, like the characters needed a voice, and in Movie Maker you could it's so dumb. Like in Movie Maker, it's the most common denominator, I guess, because you can only have one video track, one audio track, and that's it. Like, I don't know how I'd be able to manage with that today. I would not be able to, but I knew that my characters needed voices and sound effects and stuff. So like I would do that because I didn't know how to download stuff from the internet at the time, or how to use that, or where to go, where to find. So I think that's where I started, and I realized, like, man, this is kind of fun. It's fun to actually, I've been doing voice work technically for longer, because, and I love kind of telling the story, because when I was a kid, I never knew what I wanted to be. Everyone was like, I want to be a firefighter, or I want to be a policeman, I want to be a teacher, and I was just like, I have no idea what I want to be. Like, I just had no idea. I'd like nothing that I thought was a passion or something that I saw myself being. An artist wasn't really a thing that I knew could be a job when I was a kid. But when I was in, I want to say second or third grade, we were doing a play for school of the Polar Express, and I wasn't one of the actors. Myself and I think 3 other kids, we were chosen to be narrators of the story, because our reading level was higher than a lot of the other kids at the school. And my mom always taught my sister and myself to to read at a younger age. And I think that might have helped. And that was the first time I ever really did anything voice related, because the audience couldn't see me. I was behind the curtain, and I just had like the microphone in front of me.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but like it's something that doesn't even cross your mind, like, oh, this is voice acting, or this is, voiceover work. So I think that was like the first time I ever did anything more like seriously with voice stuff. And then, like I said, with animations on YouTube and stuff, like I got a knack for it. And a lot of voice actors also mention that their families do stuff, and I've noticed it more and more. Like, my parents would always do impressions of people, like, oh, I was talking to so and so, and they said, oh, this, that. Like, they do a voice for it. And I think maybe
Yeah.
that's where I got it from. And then I listened to my dad's father, and he does the same thing. So I'm like, oh, I guess it just runs in the family. They never did anything with it, but they've always been doing impressions. And I think maybe that's where it started too, because in my older animations, I would need like I used to do like a lot of Sonic stuff. So I would sort of study like, oh, how does Ryan Drummond do it? How does Jason Griffith do it? Because that was all we had at the time. So yeah, I would absolutely like imitate the voices and try to do my best. Like, I sucked at it, and I would argue I still do. But and then wow, you have Jason Griffith who has this, and that, and you start like dissecting they go up and down, up and down. You start dissecting voices, and I found that so fascinating, and I think that's what got my passion into it. Just the more, I guess, technical side of not just the voice, but also the acting, what makes a voice what it is, why does sometimes acting suck, why does it sometimes not, stuff like that. I don't know. I think that's mostly where it's gotten, and now I'm doing my first ever big, quote unquote, big project for a game, and it's cool.
How much of that can you talk about? I am curious. I'm excited for you, so I want it as much as you can give us.
I don't
obviously don't get fired.
Right. No. I mean,
as much as I can get from you, I would love to hear about it.
The job is done. Like, I recorded my stuff. Actually, I don't know how much I'm able to talk about it, but obviously I'm not going to spoil the game, but I think I can talk about it enough because there is a trailer out for it. It's called Remember When. It's being developed by Arrow Games, who are a small studio of 8 people. They're based in Scotland, and they're doing this for their university project. They're in their 3rd year of university. And the story of Remember When centers around a couple. Sarah, played by Conley Wenley, I want to say her name is. I know her name is Conley. I don't remember what her last name is. So she's an actress based out of LA. She's playing Sarah, who is the woman in the relationship, and I'm playing Noah, who is the man in the relationship. We're the main characters, and basically the game is sort of it's more of a narrative driven game. It centers around their story, how what their first date was, meeting the girlfriend's parents, getting married, and that whole journey, and how my character Noah gets more and more confident, the type of person Sarah is, and how she helps him become a better person because of it. It's a very cute little story, and I do hope that it gets a little bit of attention, just because I think that it's one of those short games, that I think could grab people's attention, even though it doesn't have a lot of gameplay or nothing really, I guess, groundbreaking gameplay wise. It is still a story that's oh, okay, that was something I'm interested in, and we can. They made a joke about game theory, and I'm oh, I can totally see I'm not gonna get into what the theory is, but I can totally see people picking apart oh, well, why this or what that, the little things. But yeah, it's nothing humongous, but it is still a milestone for me.
So when you're recording these lines as a voice actor and an actor, do they give them to you? I guess it'd be linearly, from beginning to end, or you just record certain scenes, and how do you prepare yourself for, you're saying that he grows more confident through it. Well, if you're recording in the middle, how do convey that, and then you're recording the end or beginning? How do you know to change your voice, or the volume, or anything like that?
The way they handled it was they gave us the scripts in advance, which is a great thing because, and I don't know how many people do this, but I think that if you're looking to get into voice acting, you should definitely go over the script. They gave us my character script, my co-star's script, I guess, and the master script. The master script containing every single line said by every character, every scenario, and everything. Whereas our individual scripts contain only our lines and directions where need be. We recorded it linearly. I don't know if linearly is a word, but we recorded it from beginning to end, starting from the first scene and ending with the last scene. I know that that's not how it's always done, but I think it's a good way to do it, because that way, like you said, you get a better feel of okay, I can start out one way and then my performance gets stronger as we go on. Because otherwise, I mean, it takes a great and a really experienced actor to be able to, start from the middle and be oh, I'm excited or terrified, and then go to the start and be oh, I'm a little bit more shy, and then go to the end where it's I'm confident and stuff like that. So the way we did it was linear, and there was direction. The way I prepared for the character and knowing their motivation and their confidence and all that. I read the script last night because I've been so busy that I hadn't had the chance to read it. But I read it last night. I understood the character. I understood Sarah's character as well. I knew what their relationship was. I knew the situations that I was going to be put in. I knew what I was going to be having to say. So that sort of prepared me to know, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And like I said, I think linear is the best way to go with that, because otherwise it just becomes confusing, I think, personally.
We're talking a little bit about, you discovering your voice, your love for, voice acting and acting. When you started doing those videos for YouTube, the very first ones, when did you realize it was a legitimate option to become an artist that can make money off of YouTube videos?
I never really thought about it. I knew it was a thing you could do. I knew that there were people, like pretty much some of the first YouTubers out there, namely Smosh. I knew that these people did it as sort of a job, and I knew that I didn't know how it worked, but I knew that they did it. And I never really thought of YouTube as like, oh, I'm gonna. I never set it as a goal. I never said to myself, I'm gonna become a YouTuber. I mostly thought like, oh, this is a cool hobby. I want to put my stuff out there, and I want people to enjoy it. And that's still my philosophy today. Like, I don't think of it as, I try not to think of it as a job, because if I do, I'd hate myself, because my upload schedule is very inconsistent. And that's mostly my fault because I'm overly ambitious at times. But I think the moment that I started taking it seriously and as a more viable option as an actual career and as something that I can do, and like you said, and I appreciate that you mentioned it more as an artistic thing more than like a YouTuber thing. It was in 2014. The thing was, I was in my last year of high school. I knew what I wanted to be. I wanted to study animation. And I still live in Mexico, but I was also living in Mexico at the time, and I was looking at schools in the United States, and I found one that I wanted to go to that is a very well-known art school, and because of the arts, as far as I can understand, art degrees are still very expensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so.
And it was really not the money that my parents had, mostly because they didn't really think I'd want to go back, and they didn't really know. And I mean, I don't really know either how my situation would work, being an American citizen, living in another country, but also having studied most of my life in this other country, wanting to go back. And we tried exploring a scholarship options, stuff like that, and they just seemed too complicated for what it was, being a citizen and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. The point was that we visited the school, they gave us information, it was way too much money, we couldn't afford it, and it was like a trip. It was a trip around, actually it was around this time, 5 years ago. God, I've been doing this for 5 years. It was around this time 5 years ago. We went to that school in the States, my mother and I, and then on the flight back to Mexico, so I could, because I took a few days off of school for that. I get contacted by Channel Frederator, who is you might recognize the name Frederator from cartoons, Fairly Odd Parents, Danny Phantom, stuff like that. A lot of Butch Hartman stuff. And they're still in business today. And what Channel Frederator was, or still is, it's a multi-channel network. And what that is it's a network that gathers a bunch of YouTube channels, and they pretty much manage your channel. So they allow you to make ad revenue on YouTube through them, and they give you certain benefits that honestly I don't really recommend. If you're starting out, sure, but once you reach a certain level, it's you probably don't want it because they're not helping you out too much. But don't tell anyone I told you that. No, it's fine. And so they contact me, and they I guess seen some of my animations. Someone there must have. And they asked me oh, do you want to come on board for this? And I thought about it because I'd never done something like that on YouTube before. I had been asked to, or I'd been offered, I had been given the opportunity to get an AdSense account, but I didn't know the legal, it was a whole legal thing where I needed to sign a document, and the internet is a sketchy place, and I didn't know, like,
Right.
do I want to sign this? And now I know I should have, but back then I didn't really know. So when I saw this opportunity from Frederator, which was a studio I love, I jumped at the opportunity, and I was like, wow, this is legit. I could, like, be making cartoons for this. And unfortunately, it was the same year that YouTube changed the algorithm and screwed animators over completely. So that sucks.
Yeah.
But during that trip, like, I figured, like, okay, maybe I can make money off of this, but it's whatever, like, that's just a cool extra. I'm still going to go to school. After I graduate from high school, I'm looking for jobs, and I'm very stubborn. I'm a very stubborn person. Anyone that knows me will tell you this. I was looking for a job, but not just any job, something that specifically had to do with art, because I figured, okay, college is off the table for right now. I don't want to go to school for art in Mexico because animation in Mexico sucks, straight up. It's awful. It's cheap. Very few animation productions in Mexico have been good, in my opinion. So it's like, I don't want to go to a school where I'm going to be taught the cheapest way to make animation. So I'm going to take a sabbatical, whatever. I'll find a job. I'll work that job. But I want that job to have something to do with art. So I applied to different places that needed, like, graphic design, stuff like that. I was already sort of proficient with computers, more than most people here are. And so I figured, like, this is something I can do. No one got back to me. There was one shoe company who figured, like, okay, you can work for us for a while. The pay was all right, especially for someone my age. But the thing was, the hours were awful. I had very little time to rest. I would be working 6 out of 7 days. And so I figured, nope, not doing that. And I fell into a slump. 2014 was one of the worst years of my life, for various reasons, not just that. And I won't get into all the details, but it's not the only reason I look back on that year fondly is because it was the year that I started making everything wrong with. And when we came back from that trip to go check out that college, I discovered two channels that I fell in love with because of their, like, it had made me laugh like nothing else had in a while. Screen Junkies with their honest trailers, and CinemaSins with Everything Wrong With. And because I just recently watched the movie Frozen for the first time, I watched both their videos on Frozen, and they had me in stitches. I was laughing my ass off with them. And I figured, like, oh, I could do a parody of that. Like, no one really watches my stuff, but if I put this name on it, maybe people will be interested. Like, it was I always describe it as a social experiment because that's kind of what it was. And that year, my mother had helped me purchase a Wii U because Sonic Lost World had just come out, and it was such a bizarre experience for me. It was a functional game. Like, I couldn't find reasons to hate it, but I didn't like it. And it frustrated me because I'm like, I don't know why I don't like this game. Like, I just know that I don't. And so that was the first technically parody I ever did, was the honest trailer for Sonic Lost World, where, like, I make fun of it and everything. And then it started to get a little bit of attention. People started to notice it more. People said that they liked it, that it was funny. I'm like, wow, this is great. I made one more for Mario Sunshine. I made one more for Luigi's Mansion because it was Halloween. And then the fourth one was a Shadow the Hedgehog one. But I figured Shadow the Hedgehog story is such a mess. I need to do something else along with it. Like, I'm not just going to do an honest trailer. I'm going to do an Everything Wrong With on this game too. And it was probably one of the worst videos I've ever had the displeasure of making. It was a week straight of nothing but editing. The quality was awful. Vegas kept crashing on me. The sin counter and the subtitles were a nightmare to do. And I'm so glad that the process is updated now, because I remember saying, like, I never want to do this again. But then it started just getting so much attention. It got, like, I don't know, more views than any video I'd ever had at the time. And it initially, much like today, so I guess not much has changed, it had a very negative reception at first. So that started getting traction, started getting more popular, and that's when I broke like my first threshold to make money, and then I figured like, I can keep doing this. And it might sound scummy. It might sound scummy that like, oh, you're stealing somebody else's content. It's like, it's really just taking the formula, but in reality, I'm the one that gets the footage for the video. I make the subtitles. I write the jokes. It's like I'm just doing what they do, but in my own style. I always made it a point to say like, this is them. This is their thing. Yeah. I'm not taking credit for it. I'm not saying this is my property. If you don't, and that's another thing. If you don't know their style of humor, their sense of humor, watch them first. Otherwise, you're going to hate me. But people don't like to listen, and they hate me anyway. So,
one of the things that, like, I will always respect, and I'm always going to follow you because of this, is how open you are about certain mental health things. Mm-hmm. I am about 6-7 years older than you, and when I was growing up, mental health was still, I guess stigma would be the word. Yeah. It just was like, you didn't talk about it. Like, there wasn't and we knew of mental disorders, blah, 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 but it was more like, you need to get over it type of deal, or you need to figure your shit out.
Especially in like cases of anxiety, it's especially that. Because like, yes. In our time when we grew up, it was like, oh, mental disorders are like schizophrenia and like stuff along those lines, where it's like, oh, you're a very disturbed individual. We didn't consider anxiety, depression, stuff like that. We didn't consider those technically as mental illnesses. We were just like, oh, walk it off, like you said, get over it.
I am so happy that there's a generation of kids coming up, and even like like me being older than you, it's still inspirational to me to see you being like, "Hey, I feel this way.
Yeah,
you might feel this way, and that's okay. Here are the things you can do to try to get help or work through it. But just know it's not just you. It's all of us have something, and." I don't mean to get all kind of sappy.
No. I mean, I think I'm about to, so feel free.
My kids, I don't want to keep harping on the dad thing, but I know they're watching people that see them as people, that they're going to be like, oh, well, I feel sad or anxious sometimes, and he said he does too. Mm-hmm. That means a lot to people. And, I can't thank you enough for that.
Absolutely.
Well, to abruptly segue to things that are not shitty. So I'm great at these. Pro podcaster here. Something I wanted to talk about is the formation of Minus World. Which is something I think has been great for all of you.
Absolutely.
I had talked about my 5 degrees of Kevin Bacon, except for, I guess we'd call it Nathaniel Bandy because I started with him. I found him, and then discovered you and D-Pad, and then through Minus World, that's where I actually never heard of SMG4, who apparently is huge. Right. I had never heard of him, or Hobo Bros. There's I'm not as familiar with some of the others, but like Swanky Box and through Minus World and my personal favorites, the 10v1s. Oh, and Simple Flips I had never heard of until Minus World. And it's awesome to discover all these incredibly talented people through this. Like, I'm trying to think of a way to kind of describe each of them, but like you guys all have, it's weird that organically you guys form like a Voltron. Like you all have this part that makes this machine work so perfectly. But by yourselves, you're still super amazing at the same time, and it's super, fierce and functional.
Yeah. Yeah, they're great people. Like I can rattle them all off. I always forget one. I don't know why. Like 'cause there are 10 of us. It's funny you mentioned like you didn't know Hobo Bros. Hobo Bros was actually around the time that Minus World started properly. They were kind of just starting up too. Now they're sitting at around I think 300 something subscribers. Not 300 something, 300,000 something subscribers. But
Right.
when we started Minus World, they were approaching 100,000, I think. They might have had less than that, but um, yeah, like I remember telling Nathaniel one time years ago that like, oh, dude, we should do something like that. We should do like a normal boots style thing, like just a network of creators. And I think it could be good. I think I actually originally proposed to do a multi-channel network, which I talked about earlier.
Right.
But no, like, that's just way too complicated a thing to do. So he talked to Hobo Bros, which is SMG4 and his brother Kevin, Kev Devs. They got into talks. They knew each other. I don't really know how, but they knew each other. They knew a bunch of us. Like Nathaniel knew me. He knew Tetra. He knew Simple Flips. I think he might have known Swanky as well. I think he knew D-Pad. So they all we all got contacted by them and said like, oh, we're thinking about doing this thing. Are you interested? And it might as like it was in its infant stages with the 10v1s. We started doing that on and off. Like I wasn't part of all of them, but I want to say most of them. I could be wrong about that, but that wasn't specifically Minus World yet. It became that later on, and the process was funny. Like we were just trying to figure like. We were sort of weird around each other at first. I feel like as anyone is, because not all of us knew each other. Like, oh, I know you. I've seen your stuff. I'm pretty sure I'd seen like all of their stuff at some point, at least one video of theirs.
Can I ask you one quick question about that?
Sure.
So you're saying how you're kind of awkward around each other. If you haven't seen another creator's content in that setting, but you're talking to them, what's the protocol? Do you kind of be like, oh, do you lie that you've seen it? Do you just kind of dance around it? What's that
I mean,
like?
I feel like the best thing to do is just be honest about like what you have and haven't done. Like, I don't know. I really feel like none of them had seen. Like, I'm sure some of them at least had seen some of my stuff, but like. I wouldn't be offended if some of them were like, oh, I've never heard of you before. It's just like, I don't blame you. Like, the internet is huge, and like we don't all watch all the content. Like SMG4, I know I'd seen. I hadn't really seen a video, but I'd heard of him. I was like, oh, you're like that really big Mario creator who does like the 3D animations. Like I don't think I'd ever, like I said, I didn't. I hadn't ever watched one of his videos, but like I knew of him. Nathan and I had been friends for a couple years. I had seen one of Tetra's, like it was one of his glitch videos, way back when. When it came to D-Pad, I'd seen his like Sonic Mania Easter eggs. Swanky Box, I want to say it was one of the Undertale ones, but I know I'd seen one. No, it wasn't. It was something else about him that I'd seen. It might have been like a Five Nights at Freddy's thing. Nico BBQ I'd heard because of Nathan, and they'd done collabs, and I'd seen like one or two of his videos before. Simple Flips I knew because I'm into speedrunning. I'm not a speedrunner myself, but I do enjoy that community. So like I'd heard the name tossed around a few times, like shout outs to Simple Flips. So I knew the name. And he actually kind of started making his own YouTube stuff too around the time Minus World started. So I knew the name. I thought that was really exciting. I think the only one I didn't really know was Kevin, because like Hobo Bros was again sort of starting out, and I didn't know enough about SMG4 to know that he worked in the background of SMG4. I'm gonna feel really crappy if I'm leaving someone out, because I always do.
So there's an unofficial roster in my Googling, so I don't know the official team.
I don't know. It wasn't something that we had planned out thoroughly. It just sort of like happened organically, and I do feel I feel honored. Like it may sound cliche, but I do truly feel glad and a bit proud to be a part of these big names, you know, because they're truly good people. They're great. They're fun to be around. They're not, you know, dramatic. They don't really talk smack on each other or other people. They're just really wholesome guys, and you know, we help each other out. Well, they mostly help us out. Like the smaller ones, they help us out with like understanding sponsorships, and if we have questions on a thumbnail, like, oh, does this thumbnail look good? Like we help each other out with stuff like that. It's great.
It's awesome. So I'm going to start hitting you with some just random questions now.
Okay.
Obviously, I like to learn more about the person. So I'll start with a video game question.
Okay.
Favorite character, if you had to pick one.
Oh man, favorite character in any video game?
Right, and you have to pick one.
Oh boy, that's hard. That's a tough one. I'm sure I have one. I'm sure I have like a favorite character in video games.
I could simplify it a little bit for you. Let's say more Nintendo-esque Sonic-y type games. You don't have to go into ones with like deep story.
Let's see. You know, I don't know if I'd say he's like my favorite video game character ever, but I really do enjoy Luigi. I think he's like probably one of, if not the most fleshed out like Mario character that there is, and I think that there's a lot of value to that, especially since like he's always in like Mario Shadow and stuff, but like especially with games like Luigi's Mansion, you get to see a lot of personality to him, like how much he cares about Mario, you know, how he can be brave even when he's terrified, you know, how he can be calm when things are cool, like he can just whistle his theme song, and I don't know, I think that that's really Luigi, as far as it goes, is a very interesting character, especially like in the Paper Mario series. He's always like a hoot to talk to, and you know,
you're right.
I don't know, I love Luigi.
He also has the far more superior princess and Daisy.
Daisy, yeah.
Who I've named one of my cats after as well.
Oh, that's adorable.
Yeah, no, Daisy all the way over Peach every day. I know I completely agree about Luigi. I have twin boys, and one of them loves Mario, the other loves Luigi, and it makes me happy that somebody's in his corner.
Yeah,
I have a straight up just Luigi shirt that I wear all the time, and I'm very proud of it.
Yeah.
It's one of my only shirts that fit me since I put on so much weight. But that's neither here nor there.
That's neither here nor there. That's true.
Next random question. Favorite movie genre?
Favorite movie genre?
And then give me some movies you like out of that genre.
Oh boy, okay. I've always, ever since I was a kid, I've been fond of comedy. Jim Carrey was always one of my favorites growing up. So we would watch a lot of like The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, Liar Liar, Ace Ventura, like a lot of like his 90s stuff. Like we would watch, and it was great. As far as like favorite, okay. This is not a movie that I would say is one of my favorite comedy movies, but I do think it's a very underrated movie, and it explains a lot of my sense of humor. It's a movie called Kung Pao: Enter the Fist.
Oh my god,
I love
Kung Pao.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yes.
It's a movie starring Bob Odenkirk, not Bob Odenkirk, Bob Odenkirk. He took footage from an old, I want to say Chinese film called Fist of the Tiger something Dragon. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it's a very like serious movie. And he like inserts himself as the main character, does very silly voices, dubbing over. Actually, that might have been like the inspiration for the poorly dubs. I don't know. Like just subconsciously, because like he dubs most of the characters over himself, and what they say is ludicrous. It's ridiculous, but it's very very funny. Aside from that, like I can't really think of any other movies that like come to mind immediately that I'm just like, oh man, this, you know. But I'm a huge. We actually just watched the movie The Other Guys, starring Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg, and it's such a such a delightfully awkward movie because like
It's actually really good, and I hate Mark Wahlberg, so that's saying something.
like it knows how to utilize awkward moments well, because it's like my sister and I would just look at each other during an awkward moment and just laugh our asses off, because it's like, okay, they knew how awkward that was. Like there are a lot of movies like The Room, for example, where it's like it's funny because it's not meant to be funny. Like it's meant to be very serious. And whenever it is meant to be funny, it like is very awkward. But this was a movie that was just awkward in all the right places, to the point where like they meant it to be funny, and it was. And like I always appreciate humor like that. I think that I'm a huge guy who's huge into puns, dad jokes, stuff like that. It's my bread and butter.
Well, I hope you keep coming on this podcast thing, so I have tons of dad jokes for you.
Hell yeah.
So I'm going to give you a little bit of homework then, since I'm going to awkwardly put you on the spot and tell you you're a recurring guest.
Okay.
So when you come back on again, there's a movie. I don't know how much you like Andy Samberg, but I love his dry, kind of awkward humor.
I've never really watched anything with him. Like I do think he's a funny guy. Like I've never really watched like The Lonely Island or stuff like that. Stuff that he's been in, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Like I haven't had the pleasure of watching those yet. But I'm sure that like I find it hilarious. He's a funny guy.
He has a comedy movie that came out. God, it's probably 10 years old at this point, called Hot Rod, where it flopped. Nobody's seen it, but literally. One of my closest friends in college, we sat and would watch it for weeks at a time and just have it on repeat. And people come in like, hey, what are you guys watching? We're watching Hot Rod. You want to join us? And we got our whole fraternity to eventually watch it within like 2 weeks, because we just loved it so much. We had it on repeat and just hung out and watched it in his room nonstop. It's so dumb, and the humor is so random, but sweet, but obscure at the same time. It's so hard to describe.
I think I
recommend it.
I think I know what you're talking about, and I do appreciate humor like that. I appreciate almost all kinds of humor, only when they're done right, because there are certain people who like think they can do comedy like that, because you have to have charm. And there's certain comedians out there who's just like, they don't really have a lot. Like the things that they say are funny, but they don't have the charm to like back it up, and like that's unfortunate.
Okay, one more movie question then. Favorite guilty pleasure movie?
Oh, God, favorite guilty pleasure movie? The Room, probably, with Tommy Wiseau. I started getting... when he started getting like a little bit more famous again, like I want to say last year. Yeah, last year. I was super into The Room. Like I watched it the first time last year, and I'm like, I hate this movie. I hate it so much. It's so stupid. It's so boring. Everything is awful in this movie. Then I watched it again. Then I watched it a third time. Then I played the video game based on the movie, and it's just like, man, okay, I can't hate this movie. I've watched it way too many times for me to say that I hate this movie. It's a guilty pleasure. It's so awkward, but it's really funny. And I do respect it. I respect for what it tried to be. I don't really respect Tommy Wiseau as a film director or creator, but like the whole aspect of wanting to make a movie and wanting to do a passion project is something I wholeheartedly respect, and I can get behind that 100%.
So I'm gonna give you mine. Mine's not as funny. The movie P.S. I Love You with Gerard Butler. I don't remember who the actress is, but he dies and leaves her all these notes around.
Oh, Meg Ryan.
And she goes and yes, maybe. I think you're right. I just remember every time she reads those and she get to the last line and it was always P.S. I love you, I just be crying like a baby every time. And that was like one of those movies I like when I need a good cry. I'm like,
yeah,
no one's around.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna watch P.S. I Love You and cry a lot. So,
I need a.
That was my
cry
good cry movie for a very long time.
I think we all have one. We were talking about it earlier, but I think Coco is that for me. Like that's my good like. and like I'm just singing the songs at the end.
That movie's just so good all around,
Oh,
though.
yeah.
Like, that's just such a beautiful movie. All right, so we'll do a few more video game ones, kind of get this a little back on track.
Sure.
Then we'll end it there.
Okay.
So what's a video game series that you would like to cover or talk about more, but it doesn't really necessarily fit with your channel?
Metal Gear Solid. Not that it doesn't fit with my... okay. I feel like that's not fair because I could cover those games. The thing is, like, I did the first Metal Gear Solid as in Everything Wrong With, and actually, I probably would not have gotten into that series or Kingdom Hearts if it hadn't been for the Everything Wrong With, because people like suggested, like, oh, you should cover this, and I'm like, okay, and then I got the games, I played through them, I loved them. When I did the video on the first Metal Gear Solid game, I didn't have a thumbnail prepared, so that's a video that still doesn't have a thumbnail, a proper one. Konami copyright claimed it, so automatically it like tanked. Like there was no ad revenue, there was like nothing, so people didn't really get a whole lot of exposure to it. And that's why I hesitate to like cover the rest of the series because I'm like I don't know if people like there are a lot of Metal Gear Solid fans, but I don't know how interested they'd be in watching one of my videos. So I would love to do that more. But there are a lot of video. I feel like Pokemon is actually something that I'd love to talk about more on the channel, but because of how different my content is and how it's mostly focused around like voice acted cutscenes, I'm not able to. I actually did a video with Tetrabit Gaming and D-Pad Gamer. This was like shortly after Minus World was made, so I didn't really know them all too well, but I figured like, oh, these guys know like glitches and stuff. I'll have them on for that since I'll be using glitches up the ass for this video. And that got me a little bit closer to them. It got me a little bit to know them a little bit better. Not a whole lot. We didn't really talk too much during the production of it, but like I understood their sense of humor a lot better. And you know, that video didn't really do too well despite its length. I love that video personally. I think it's a really well put together video, but just a lot of like older games. I don't know, Pokemon. I'm trying to think. The Legend of Zelda is probably a game series I wouldn't be able to really cover on Everything Wrong With, mostly because they're not voice acted. But you know, I want to get into them. I've never played a Zelda game before, but I own most of the main series. I just haven't had a reason to really sit down and play them because I can't really do anything with it. I guess I could stream it, but I don't know.
I would definitely love a good Zelda stream. I actually don't think I've ever watched one. I don't see a lot of people doing them. I guess if I searched it, but
yeah.
I want to go back to Metal Gear Solid. I love the series, and we'll just touch on this briefly. But how much you know about like the history of the character and the creation of it? Do you know a lot about it, or are you just
like
kind of
real life, or
like why Snake looks and was how he was?
Yeah, no, I'm a little well versed in it. I haven't played 5 yet, but I know most of it.
Do you know that he was based off of Snake Plissken from
Escape from New York.
Escape from LA?
Oh yeah,
and it was
it LA? Escape from somewhere. Escape from a major city.
There was LA and New York.
Okay.
He's in both.
Okay,
I believe 80s action movies, and that was oh goodness, I'm blanking on his name now. Guy who does them in Silent Hill. It was like his love letter to American late 80s, early 90s American action movies and how they were like over the top and awesome. Mm-hmm. And if you follow the games as America, and not to get too political, you know, in like the first few episodes of my podcast, but
right.
As America has kind of become more of a villain and you know, a less desirable place, you can see the tone of the game shift too to be a little more cynical and serious, and Snake also kind of become more, you know,
that way.
Dirty and like the last few games he did, it like almost like he hated the character at that point because his opinion on, you know, what if it originally was a love letter had changed so much over the years. And if you ever had a chance to do a podcast about it, or an episode about it, I would love to. The stories are incredibly complex and they confuse me.
Right.
But the psychology of it, I think, is something that can really be broken down.
Yeah, that's what I love about them too. Like, I often say that my favorite movie is Metal Gear Solid 4. It's because it has so many cutscenes, but like
so much.
It's my favorite in the series because it just wraps everything so well together. And like I realized that like on its own, you couldn't make sense of the story because like it's so dependent on like characters from the other games, but it brings everything together so well. And I love stories like that.
It reminds me, I did an episode with D-Pad about Dark Souls lore. Mm-hmm. And I remember trying to prepare for that and like my brain melting because it doesn't make any goddamn sense. And that's kind of, I used to sit and watch when I had a lot more free time. Like I don't remember the channel and I feel really bad and I should look it up later, give them credit. But they break down the whole series and everything, and they like take little clips from each one and help tell the story.
That's awesome.
And it's so good. So to wrap it up, where can people find you on the internets?
If you look anywhere online, if you look up Charriii5, CHARR, 3 I's and a 5, that's a mouthful to say, but if you look up that, or if you just look up the guy that does everything wrong with videos, I'm among one of the top 5, I want to say. But yeah, but anything with Charriii5 in the name, that's me. Except for that one dude who took my name for his Roblox account. That's not me. I don't play Roblox, but there was a kid who did that, I guess. That's weird. But like I'm on
That is weird.
I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, YouTube, obviously. I'm trying to think of like other social medias that I use. Twitch. I'm not on Facebook. You can't find me on Facebook, but YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram. Those are my 4 main ones. Those are the things I do stuff on. That you can absolutely find me there. And yeah, that's how you can find me out. You can see other projects I'm in. You can look up Nathaniel Bandy's stuff I've been in. The Minus World channel. I've been on Nintendrew's channel a couple times. Nintendrew, that's who I was missing. Drew is fantastic. Yeah. I'm so sorry. He's
incredibly charming.
He's so good. He's like such a great friend. In fact, like he and I share so much of our sense of humor. Like I got to meet him in person last year, and he and I are just so similar in terms of sense of humor that he's a fantastic guy. He's very sweet, very lovely, very interesting person, very successful. I love Drew. But anyway, like I've been on his stuff too, and yeah, like pretty much that's about it.
Awesome, and I'm at Brock Holiday 11, Holiday with 2 L's on Twitter, and I also pop up on the Venture Brothers podcast every once in a while on the After the Hype network.
So absolutely check that out.
All right, man, it's been awesome. All right, everybody, be good people.
Stay safe and stay awesome, everybody.